The world is full of some very strange places, and among these, some are stranger than most. Certainly ranking amongst these is a place sitting out in the wilds of the United States of Arizona, which has long been orbited by UFOs and weird creatures and aliens and monsters and all manner of high strangeness, a place that's worse than Skinwalker Ranch. One of the most popular destinations in the state of Arizona is the town and region of Sedona, which over the years has accrued a reputation as quite the mecca for New Agers and the paranormal researchers from all over the country, as well as droves of tourists every single year. Now, Arizona, and in particular, this area is rather known for a high concentration of UFO sightings and for the mysterious energy vortices said to dot the landscape in this spot, where earth energies crackle and which are believed to confer all manner of health benefits, as well as said to aid in meditation and self-reflection. It is largely because of these alleged magical vortices that a bustling business of spiritual healing tours and metaphysical medicine outfits have sprung up here, and one can already see that Sedona is already a rather strange and unique place in an already rather unique and strange state. However, Sedona is also the home to a very unusual patch of land where there have long been reported all matter of high strangeness, from UFOs to ghosts to cryptids and even dinosaurs and more. Go off the beaten path for a while, off down a remote, unpaved, rough dirt road just 12 miles outside Sedona in the Verde Valley, and you will be met with the sight of a rather large abandoned ranch, now inaccessible and blocked off by an intimidating gate plastered with signs from the U.S. Forest Service warning away trespassers. The desert scrub and wilderness area around the ranch is as desolate, remote, and uninhabited as one can get. And the now uninhabited ranch itself has devolved into a feral place overgrown with weeds and partially devoured by the landscape. It was obviously once an expansive and very successful ranch. So what is this place, and why is it just sitting out there forgotten to be slowly reclaimed by the ravenous wilderness around it? For that, folks, we have to go way back to the beginning, back in 1945. It was in 1945 that a Hollywood stuntman and actor named Bob Bradshaw moved out to the Sedona area, where he opened a modest business in the form of a photography shop. With his Hollywood connections, Bradshaw also had a hand in many of the westerns that were popular at the time and which favored the deserts and canyons of the area, for sets. And with over 50 full-length features made in this vicinity over the years, which helped to revitalize the area, and with this newfound influx of cash and good standing amongst the locals, in 1960, Bradshaw purchased a 140-acre parcel of land out in this particular valley at a place that was then known as Bitter Creek. And this ranch and its old adobe house would also go on to become a popular place to shoot movies, such as the 1967 Elvis Presley film Stay Away Joe and others. Now, in the 1990s, Bradshaw's son, John Bradshaw, turned the land into a more functional, actual working ranch. And it also became popular as a recreation spot for camping, horseback riding, and other various outdoor activities. Now, at the time, this was a secluded place of natural beauty with a veneer of Hollywood laid over it, but things would begin to take a turn for the strange beginning from 1992, when a series of escalating strange phenomena began to creep across the ranch itself. Now, it supposedly began with John Bradshaw's wife, Linda, who claimed to begin seeing mysterious orbs of light and other objects in the sky over the ranch, as well as sudden bright flashes with really no discernible cause and streaking mystery lights. Now, if your wife was named Linda, that sounds like a type of person who would go on to see strange stuff in the sky. I'm just saying. Now, this was perhaps to be expected because the region was already long known as a hotspot for UFO sightings. But things would quickly escalate and further branch out into the weird. As if UFOs and anomalous lights in the sky were not odd enough, Linda claimed, of course Linda claimed this, that odd comets would move across the property shooting beams of light, and that the place was supposedly crawling with barely glimpsed shadow people and other entities. Her and her son would also claim to have had a rather far-out encounter with actual aliens on the property, which she would see outside her window one evening and describe this. Strolling past the window were 4 short-statured aliens wearing tight-fitting one-piece uniforms of a light tan color. They were what are typically called the Zeta Reticuli, also known as the Greys, only these appeared to be a bit more ashen-colored, almost white. Once the beings were out of sight and the witnesses recomposed themselves, the 3 of them jumped into their car and sped to the house where I was sleeping. I remember so vividly how my son vigorously shook my arm to wake me up. I can still hear the trepidation in his voice as he said, "Mom, wake up. They're here." I raised up and said, "Who's here?" He exclaimed, "The aliens, Mom." Now, the next day, she allegedly went out to investigate the area where the entities had been seen and found tiny footprints in the ground, which they took video footage of. Now, there was a lot of UFO and alien activity reported around the ranch as well. Linda's son Victor would claim that he had taken a hike in the canyon and stumbled across some white trucks and men in white suits. He claimed that on the bed of the truck, there had been a metallic wingless craft of some kind. Making the whole incident even more bizarre is what would happen next. As he stared at the strange sight of that craft and the men in white suits, he allegedly heard a noise behind him, and when he turned to look, he saw what he described as a gray alien peering at him through the gloom. On another occasion, Tom saw a small humanoid in a brown suit dash across the field near a juniper tree. Their dogs apparently chased the thing, but as it neared the fence line, it just seemed to blink out of existence, vanishing into thin air to leave behind some very surprised dogs. Adding to this were doppelgangers of family members who would be seen when the real person was in a totally different area. This got so bad that one time her husband became convinced they were extraterrestrial intruders trying to infiltrate the family. And he even locked Linda out of the house one night because he thought she was one of them. She would say this: "As he later confessed to me, he suspected that I was one of them, and he was therefore afraid of me. This was tragic. It took about 2 hours before he relented and unlocked the doors, allowing me to come in out of the cold." On top of aliens, there was also sightings of large, hairy, Bigfoot-like creatures on the property and other less discernible creatures. Now, even stranger than these sightings were accounts of spotting what were described as actual dinosaurs on the ranch, with Linda herself claiming one time to have seen a 5-foot-tall bipedal lizard with a long tail standing on a dirt path one evening. Now, these apparent dinosaurs purportedly left large reptilian tracks that were sometimes found on the property as well. And Linda recorded these and all manner of other strangeness at the ranch, such as livestock and other animals falling ill for no apparent reason, or the manes of her horses torn off, and other bizarre miscellaneous weirdness. The horses were supposedly also often spooked for no reason, and there were sometimes found large 3-toed tracks near the stables that were not identifiable as belonging to any of the known wildlife in the canyon. Now, she would attribute these tracks to a Bigfoot-like creature both her and her husband had seen on occasion, which they called Big Girl. Now, poltergeist phenomena were also apparently very common. Objects would move or levitate through the air, with one strange recurring instance of this being her camera, which would move around by itself and take various pictures of the house. Maybe it was a real estate photography ghost. Now, one of these strange photos showed orbs above the kitchen table, and another showed the yard as seen through one of the kitchen windows, but it wasn't quite the same yard, as a portion of the scene seemed blocked off by a mysterious illuminated border. There were also strange noises, and on one occasion, Linda and her husband clearly heard a loud crash and the breaking of glass. But a full search of the house found no broken windows and no shards of glass anywhere. They would also hear disembodied footsteps roaming about the house when there was no one there, yet no intruders. And Bob would say of the mental toll all this was taking on him. His perception of reality was tested and questioned again and again, as he had had encounters with extraterrestrials, Bigfoot, and other human-like entities that towered over him. And he was able to photograph much of the phenomena, which began rather benignly with wafting multicolored orbs of light, then escalating over 7 years to more heart-stopping episodes where he would encounter and interact with otherworldly beings, or so he claims. Now, after several years of this, in 1995, she compiled it all into a book called Merging Dimensions, The Opening Portals of Sedona, along with ufologist Tom Dongo. Now, the book also features numerous photos that were supposedly captured at the ranch, with many of the strange phenomena not seen until the film was developed. UFOs, aliens, Bigfoot, shadow people, living dinosaurs. What in the world is going on here? Linda believes that all of these phenomena are the result of some sort of interdimensional doorway that is, for whatever reason, opened up at the ranch and through which spew all manner of entities. She would say of her theory this:
I believe these openings have always been on our plane, and they've perhaps been the portals to allow others in. But if one were to ask my opinion of my experiences regarding this magical place, I would say that not only are they being allowed in, but they are coming in great numbers. I would also love to say that only compassionate beings of light are scooting through these portals, but this does not always seem to be the case. I have come face to face with a few decidedly nasty beings.
Now, the list of strange phenomena reported from the ranch to this day is long, and one of the more frequently observed phenomena is the heavy presence of orbs. Now, both the Bradshaw family and visitors and the paranormal researchers alike ever since have reported these glowing balls of light just kind of meandering above the place, and there have also been reports of the lights taking the form of more structured objects. This phenomenon can apparently get fairly intense, and one report from an investigation by UFO Digest has said of it this:
Our digital photographs were to quickly reveal brightly colored orbs floating around the entire area, testimony to Linda Bradshaw's account. But it is with the assistance of night vision binoculars that we were able to see a massive concentration dancing in and around the steel windmill structure itself. Now, I've taken plenty of photos of orbs, but none with such color and intensity as these. But then to actually witness their seemingly intelligent movement, glittering in and out of luminosity around the windmill, was simply inspiring and extraordinary. This left no doubt in my mind that the orb phenomenon is in fact intelligent life forms from another dimension. Linda Bradshaw's portal theory is correct. These were no mere dust particles, my friend, and we were certainly not in Kansas anymore.
Adding to the orb phenomenon is that there is often reported a sort of glitter in the air here, a kind of glowing dust or charged particles of some kind. Paranormal investigator William Hamilton, who's the executive director of Skywatch International, had to say this:
I was told that if I tripped by camera flash in the dark, I would see that the air was filled with an unusual sparkling energy. I deliberately flashed my camera in the dark while looking through the viewfinder, and indeed, I could see glowing particles filling the air. Seeing Seeking a conventional explanation for the spectacle, I surmised that particles of dust must be suspended in the air, and that my flash simply reflected off these numerous particles of dust. But as I continued the experiment, I noticed that the glittering particles did not move around as I have seen dust move, but rather seemed to be suspended or frozen in the air. As we continued walking, I noticed from time to time a tiny light would flicker on in distant bushes, then extinguish. I asked Tom about this, and he said that he noticed this on all of his frequent excursions out there. They appeared to be like the fireflies I used to watch at my uncle's house on Long Island when I was a young boy, but fireflies were not known in Arizona.
UFOs are also still frequently sighted in the skies above the ranch, and there are also reports of strange creatures in the wilds here, in particular Bigfoot. Now, one Bigfoot encounter at the ranch was described by a paranormal researcher, Alan McGargle, I believe that's how you say his last name, who investigated the ranch with his father Ron, his brother-in-law Joel, and a local guide only known as Hoodoo Tall. On this day, they had already had some strange experiences there, as Hoodoo had been inexplicably confused and unable to locate it, despite having been there many times before. Now, when they did manage to finally find the ranch, they had immediately made contact with a ghost on the property, which showed up on their equipment and produced a column of frigid air. Then there was Bigfoot, and McGargle explains what happened next.
I was leaned over the REM pod asking questions to the spirit box. When Hoodoo chimed in, I decided to let him ask the questions since he had history with the place and whatever is there. I stood up, and when I did, I happened to be facing southeast and looking directly out the window. There was something outside the building. Just outside the building, maybe 50 feet away, was a dark figure silhouetted against the night sky. This was no ordinary figure, though. It was huge. I'd estimate the shadowy presence to be around 6 feet tall and a whopping 4 to 5 feet wide at the shoulders. It looked like a linebacker, hunched over at the line of scrimmage ready for the ball to be snapped. I felt paralyzed. I was totally mesmerized as I pondered what I was looking at. The figure appeared to move to one side, then the other, getting closer to me each time. After doing that a few times, it was gone. The whole encounter lasted almost 2 minutes. I was unable to speak or move until it was gone. I then explained to our team what had just happened, and we went outside to look around. Nothing was found. On the way back to drop off Hoodoo, we discussed what I had witnessed in detail. As I explained to him what this creature looked like, he replied, "Have you seen my photo?" "What photo?" I said. "It sounds exactly like the creature I photographed at the ranch a few months ago." So Hoodoo brought out his cell phone and showed me the photo. There it was. Sure enough, that's what I saw. It was a Bigfoot.
An even stranger encounter with some sort of outlandish beast is an account given by Reddit user LuckJ151, who says this:
I spend a lot of time on this ranch still. I go twice a year on 10-day trips. The activity is still through the roof. I've encountered a creature there at night that was 15 to 20 feet tall and was swinging a tree log around like a baseball bat. I'm constantly finding creature tracks, ranging from Bigfoot to those dinosaurs.
Now, all of this weirdness over the years has drawn in all kinds of paranormal researchers, and it has been featured on numerous TV programs with orb and UFO activity commonly caught on film at the location. Now, some of these researchers and programs have had strange experiences and made some pretty bizarre findings on the property, to say the least. Now, one very strange experience supposedly happened during the filming of a 2013 episode of Discovery Channel show Uncovering Aliens. Now, with this episode focused on the ranch, according to the report, at some point, a man named Stephen Jones wandered away from the crew and onto the actual property of the ranch. When he returned half an hour later, he was apparently in a daze, and he claimed that he had heard disembodied voices all around him and that he had missing time. And making it all the more bizarre was that his watch had reportedly stopped working. Now, this was not put in the final episode, but it probably should have been. What happened to him out there? No one knows. And it just adds to the rest of the lore on this very bizarre location. Another investigation that turned up some interesting data was carried out by the group 40 and Winds, who claims to have found much evidence of EMF anomalies there. In fact, their report would read in part,
"Given the history of the ranch, we were curious to see if we found any EMF anomalies, similar to those found at Skinwalker Ranch, and brought along a metal detector to scan the area around the ground should we find any. As mentioned, the area is being monitored for climate change research, but we tried to stay far enough away from the ranch to avoid electronics. Thanks to the climate research, numerous soil samples were available online. We saw nothing that should be especially electromagnetic, and yet we found some spikes, a bunch. Within a few hundred yards of the dirt path, we started finding unusually high readings. They seemed to move. We used a metal detector to look for sources. We noted nothing around us or any cell towers nearby. We've used the same detector in a busy urban residential area and have not found any readings this high. We reset the detector a number of times with repeated anomalous results and retested it that night in a residential area to see if it found anything. It found nothing. There could be electronics at the ranch as part of research or something else we missed, which caused this. Yet, the question we began with was, can we find EMF anomalies similar to those found at Skinwalker Ranch at Bradshaw Ranch? Our conclusion is yes, but needs further research and validation.
Now, making all these mysteries even deeper is the fact that in May of 2003, the U.S. government suddenly and without explanation purchased the ranch and quickly had it locked away from the rest of the world. Why? Locals claim that there was frequently military personnel already seen around the area, and in addition to the signs keeping people out, were also armed guards said to patrol the area and turn people away in no uncertain terms. Unverified reports exist of hikers being confronted and turned away by heavily armed guards with no visible identification or insignia, or even more ominously, chased off the property by either guards or all-terrain vehicles that are all black with no noticeable markings. Researcher Tom Dongo has talked about this specifically in his book, Mysterious Sedona, and he explains it like this.
A machine gun, usually an M16, or in some cases semi-automatic pistols, is then leveled at the hikers. By the tone of the voice of the soldiers, the hiker or hikers is left with no doubt that he will be shot on the spot if he does not turn around, retrace his steps, and rapidly leave the area. Those looking for hard evidence of these claims won't find it. There are plenty of stories of suspicious activity, missing persons, and aliens and UFOs spotted in conjunction with soldiers, but no substantiated evidence exists to prove these theories. Military activity in the area could very well be routine training exercises, and those hikers asked to turn around may be done for their own safety.
Now, it seems odd for this to be the case with just a ranch out in the middle of nowhere. So why is this? Well, it depends on who you ask. For some, it is because the U.S. Forest Service is looking to preserve valuable Native American archaeological sites in the area, but, of course, considering all the strange phenomena reported from here and the rumors of portals and vortices, there are others who think that the government confiscated the land in order to cover it all up. Now, according to former CIA investigator Andrew Bustamante, the land was not bought by the government, but rather seized. He claims to have come across this as part of his investigation into Bradshaw Ranch and other places in the Sedona region for the History Channel's program, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and he explained this.
Paul Beban, the investigative reporter, opened that question. What happened here with the changeover in ownership of Bradshaw Ranch? What we discovered in official government records is that there was never a willful transaction of the land, Bustamante said. Bradshaw Ranch was never sold. It was seized through something called eminent domain. Eminent domain is a right that the federal government has to seize any land in the United States, whether it's privately owned or publicly, under some unknown cause of national security or national improvement. I want to say it happened in 2001.
For his part, John Bradshaw, who is Bob Bradshaw's son, would be cryptic on the matter. merely saying, "It's complicated." The History Channel investigation covered the Sedona region, including Bradshaw Ranch, and involved a team of professionals, including Andrew, a former CIA investigator, Paul Babon, who's an award-winning investigative journalist, and other scientists, aided with cutting-edge equipment such as a drone magnetometer, thermal cameras, spectrum analyzers, Geiger counters, new radiation technology, and a gamma camera. They claim to have come across all kinds of weird stuff. One of these is that the whole region seems to be strangely permeated with an unidentifiable radio signal on the 1.6 gigahertz frequency. And he said of it this:
"One of our primary pieces of evidence that we wanted to corroborate in Sedona and other areas of our investigation was this 1.6 gigahertz frequency. What is it? Why is it happening? Because it happened in more than one place. Is there any pattern to it? Do we know where the transmission is coming from? Do we know the source, which was a big part of our investigation? I did not in a million years expect to find what we found around that frequency in Sedona, Arizona, and I will leave you with that. Because when you see what we found, it left Dr. Travis Taylor, an astrophysicist, engineer, and lead scientist at Skinwalker Ranch, speechless. And I can't wait to see what the rest of the audience thinks when they see Travis's reaction to what we discovered about that frequency. A man who has seen as much as Dr. Taylor, and to find that man at a loss of words is a privilege in and of itself."
Now, readings taken at the ranch also showed the anomaly that it had a much stronger magnetic field than the surrounding area. By some estimates, around 500 times greater. Although why this is or what connection it has to the purported phenomena, no one knows. Well, the government military probably do, but us civilians, the public, we don't know. Although the team did not encounter any overt military action against them on site, they did notice that they were definitely not welcome in those parts. Bustamante explains of this and gives a wrap-up of what they found as follows.
"When we were on site, we did not encounter uniform military activity. What we did encounter was kind of near-peer competition trying to hinder or impact our investigation. We did also collect some compelling evidence that suggested a level of sophistication that would really only be accessible to the federal government or the U.S. military. And that's all evidence that we were able to capture with our tools and our equipment that we'll be able to show. I would say this, I think that we've found some evidence that pushes some of the questions that both Linda Bradshaw and Tom Dongo asked about the possibility of merging dimensions. We push the understanding of whether those questions are based on realities. We push that far, very far forward. There are revelations that we find pretty compelling. We actually had the opportunity to experience high strangeness ourselves, capture it on camera, record the data, analyze the data, and then compare it against what we found on Skinwalker Ranch. There is no going back. Once you have actually done that level of work, that level of investigation, when you've documented your findings and shared them with your peers, like Dr. Travis Taylor and principal investigator and chief scientist Eric Bard, once you have that opportunity, there is no forgetting that. You don't ever go back again.
Currently, the land is being used by the Southwest Experimental Garden Array, also known as SEGA, a climate change project which is associated with Northern Arizona University. The university has taken the land on loan from the government and seem to be just as secretive about it as the military. Now, to this day, the area is still locked behind imposing gates plastered with "Keep Out" signs, although this has done little to keep out the truly adventurous. Curiosity seekers and paranormal investigators alike routinely sneak into the property or lurk along its periphery, hoping for some glimpse of the unknown and often succeeding. What is going on at Bradshaw Ranch? It is hard to say just what is going on with all this, but Bradshaw Ranch has continued to be a hotspot for the paranormal nevertheless, with hikers and tours that skirt the property often coming back with myriad tales of the weird. Is this all just kooky conspiracy tales, tall tales, and fiction? If any of it is real, then is it as Linda Bradshaw says? And there is perhaps some sort of interdimensional phenomenon at work here. If so, then why does it congregate to this one place? It is interesting to note that the extremely wide range of different types of phenomena reported from here. Orbs, spook lights, UFOs, Bigfoot, aliens, dinosaurs, and others, all of them coexisting in this one patch of high strangeness, gravitating to this place for strange unknown reasons. Why should that be? Also worthy of note is that although the ranch had been there for years before Bradshaw even came along, why is that the disturbances did not begin until 1992? What activated it, if any of it even exists at all? And why did the government buy up the land and then prohibit access? Whether this is all urban legend, conspiracies, interdimensional portals, or something even stranger, Bradshaw certainly inhabits its own little corner of the strange and a state already steeped in the bizarre. And because you guys made it this far into the episode, I want you to comment down below worse than you think, so I know who made it to the end of the video. If you guys want to see more content just like this, be sure to go ahead and smack that like and subscribe button for more. As always, I love you all, keep an open mind, and I'll catch you all in the very next episode.